Hey everybody, welcome again to the show that yet has to be named because I'm working on some things. But we are going to talk to a few creators that many of you might already know, but if you don't, you're about to get to know, as well as dive into their anthology, which is a black horror anthology called Shook. Okay, now this anthology, if you are a fan of EC horror, Get Out, Nope, Candyman, especially the first one and the last one, the ones that count, especially, as well as Warren Publishing, Eerie Comics, Fangoria. I can go on. You know where I'm going with this, that you want to tune in because this is going to be a special set of interviews. And we've got one more joining us. We might have a couple more people just pop up. You never know what's going to happen. So, right with that, we'll go ahead and say welcome, Evan, and let me introduce you to everybody, and then they'll talk a little bit about themselves, and we'll get into some questions. And if you have questions or comments, you can jump in the comment section from your favorite social media, as long as it's not being trashed by some crazy rich dude. You should be good. All right, let's get into it. So I'll go ahead and introduce real quick, and then they'll talk about themselves on the second pass. So we've got Evan, Marcus, we've got Professor John Jennings, we've got Alverne Ball, and some of you are in a little bit of a dark, so let me go ahead and see if I can adjust this real quick to make sure everyone can see. I'm going to play with this a little bit, little technicality thing. I think that's probably more even. That's okay. That's equity right there. We have equity of space right here on the screen, so that way everyone is in the camera. Hey, Evan, if you happen to have any other source of light, that would help us see, but if not, and we want to go for the mystery, we can do that too. So.
Yeah, I don't have the best light situation.
Okay, that's cool then. Okay, the sultry sounds of Evan Parke are going to dazzle us tonight, and we'll just go with the audio. So, hey, let's start with you, Evan. Evan, for those that may not know, what not claim to fame, but give us a little bit about your background or just who you are. Most of us know who you are, but
okay. No, I'm my background's mostly coming from being an actor, working, television, film, stage, Broadway, off Broadway, but now transitioning to more of somebody who's a creator. As I get older, I sort of have I do have a vision to more create and get behind the creation of great ideas and great content. So. I've done probably over 16 features, maybe, and maybe easily over 200 episodes of television. From various sort of shows and specials and so on and so forth. So it's been fun. I'm grateful for it. But I'm equally excited to be able to work amongst these great experienced creators in the graphic novel and comic book world, which I think is a great place to secure ideas that could be used for a lot of different platforms. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. And we'll get into some of your transitions as far as going from in front of the camera, the art that you do there, and now the art that you're doing behind the camera, and when it comes to the scripts and things of that nature. But moving on to Alverne Ball, Mr. Ball, the person who leaves no imagination when it comes to rug cutting. I've seen this man dance, and it's pretty intense and fierce. Pretty impressive. I'll have to tell you that story one time, but I think Al wants to speak for himself right now. Sorry, I set him up.
Oh yeah. Only you, Greg, would know those things. Hey everyone. As JM said, I'm just a writer. I write TV, film, graphic novels, crime novels, anything I can get my hands on, I'm writing. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay. And then moving on, we just had David join us, but we'll go ahead and get to David here in a minute. We're just introducing everybody, David. So right now we got Professor John Jennings. Next up, Professor John Jennings. People would like to know more about you if they don't already.
Okay. Greetings. I'm so excited to be here and be a part of this anthology with these good brothers. Again, my name is John Jennings, and I'm a professor of media and cultural studies at the University of California at Riverside, where I teach classes around Afrofuturism and aesthetics, race and horror, comics and contemporary culture, and actually teach a class on politics and the Black superhero. So those are some of the things that that I do is that's my day job. That's my benefits job. Now, my side hustle is I'm a publisher, writer, and artist of comics. Right. So I run this small publishing concern called Megascope through Abrams Comic Arts. We were just listed. Actually, one of our books was just listed as one of the best comics of 2022. The Keeper by Tanana Reeve and Stephen Barnes. Yay! And also Eisner Award-winning New York Times bestselling artist and creator. And I'm kind of a Johnny Appleseed of creating like ethnocentric comic book conventions. So I co-founded the Schaumburg Black Comic Book Festival, and also the Black and Brown Comic Arts Festival in San Francisco, and also let's see what else. Shoot,
SoulCon.
SoulCon, OSU. Thank you.
Yeah.
My brain that's good sometimes. Anyway, and also CamCon, which is coming up December 10th at the California African American Museum, which should be really wonderful. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking with y'all about Shook.
All right, awesome. And then moving on to Marcus Roberts over here at the bottom right, my bottom right. Hey, Marcus, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as representative of?
Well, I'm Marcus Roberts. I'm the COO of Second Sight Publishing, comic book creator, writer, and comic book collector, bigger than anything else. And I'm like ecstatic being on this book with all these good brothers, as John said. Being the collection editor of this book is like a dream come true for me. Just a small bit of my background. At one point, I worked with the World of Black Heroes, and in doing that, we often reviewed a lot of comic books. You always get comic book reviews. So I have comic books with every one of these comic book creators in it. From the One Nation with Alverne, I got the whole from John Jennings. I got
the whole.
Look, I have it's not the Were Spider that was drawn by this artist sitting right here. So yeah, and I'm waiting, and now I have a chance to get Evan Park's first stuff. So my comic book collection is just gonna be fat. And it's gonna get fat, even fatter with the Shook collection.
It's looking nice. It's looking nice. And then last but not least, we might be joined later on by a few other people, but we have the amazing David. Welcome, David. Would you like to tell just people a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into some other details?
Cool. Well, happy to be here, and like amongst all these giants right here. Everybody else here is award-winning, and blackity black black black. So I'm happy to be a part of that. Yeah, I'm the amazing David Brame. That's the name I've been using for a long time. I'm a cartoonist, creator, artist, like doing gallery work, installation, all that kind of stuff. Award winning and like award nominated. And most of my work centers around like Afro surrealism, Afrofuturism, Afro horror, anything with Afro in the front of it. That's what I do. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to help contribute to Marcus's comic collection. I got like a bunch of stuff coming out in the next couple years, so it's gonna be. I hope to fill your shelves with my work.
I don't think that'll be a problem. I think you're one of the names that is whispered, behind, PMs and DMs when it comes to, that artist that people want to work with. So you've come up a few times.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that always feels good to know.
It does, yeah.
I mean, that's what I've told a lot of people. I'm not very good at like, doing the networking out in the world because I live in Alaska, so I'm usually like far away from everyone. But it's good to know that I'm like people speak about me in the hushed rooms, and they're just like, oh yeah, that amazing David Brame. You should link with that dude.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Can I say something? That's funny.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Dave, you're the second Black person I met in the last 3 weeks from Alaska. It's hilarious. My videographer, she's from Alaska. Real cool young sister. It's funny. I
That's
just thought it was
amazing.
interesting.
Yeah, one of my
Your
friends, Brian
videographer, is she
Payne.
from Alaskan Robotics?
No, she's raised in Alaska. She's about 25.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, there's
Yeah, she's from Alaska. She's the first black I met from Alaska. So you're the second. You from Alaska?
So you're saying-
You are?
Do you know Brian Payne, David? Zine Comics out there in Alaska.
I do know Brian. Yeah,
Okay. Oh, that's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So, and a contributor to some of my anthologies that I publish. For
That's
going on
pretty
3 years
cool.
now. So,
Yeah, no,
good people.
yeah, I've known Brian for like 7 years. I met him a long time ago. The first time I went to Alaska,
Yeah.
and he
Gotcha.
yeah, he sent me a bunch of zinc. I went there once. I did a big mural with him, like the 75-foot mural with Brian,
nice.
and he was like, yeah, we just hung out. He's like a weird hippie dude. His wife Sky is pretty dope. She's like,
yeah.
But yeah, I know Brian.
she's his muse. So yeah.
Yeah,
good
I can see that like 100% because she's a
we have
wild
gathered
lady.
you all here today because we are going to talk about this anthology, Black horror anthology called Shook. So what I'm going to do is share my screen real quick, and we're going to look at the Kickstarter itself, and we're going to give folks who are watching just a breakdown of what Shook is going to be about, as well as just your individual parts to it, and then we'll cut back to you all so that way we can kind of get into the just the process and things of that nature. So let me go ahead and play techie here real quick. So they finally made this software smart enough to be able to deal with me. So okay, so right now we have Shook. Everyone see the screen right now? So we're at 33,778. The goal is 50,000. So we need that number to go up. If you're paying attention, if you're horror, today is Tuesday's Giving, right? Giving Tuesday. So why don't you give yourself, this nice anthology full of stories. The art is kicking. I'm about to scroll right here to show you. Once you go to this, link is in the comments. You can also check out the videos for yourself, but it's already projects we love, certified. The artwork on the cover is a bunch of different versions, I believe, that John's been sharing of his work on social media. Now, the permanent cover, is that going to be a variant, or is it going to stay like this cover, or will that change, John?
I'm thinking it's going to change. I mean, we had like a lead artist. Maybe Marcus could speak to that, but
okay.
I felt like when we were running the Kickstarter that we needed to give people kind of a sense of the spectrum of, Black horror they were thinking about. I mean, it's definitely a true anthology, and I love the fact that it's coming from some more Afrocentric standpoint. So, I just put together a mock-up of what could be possible, kind of really influenced by the aesthetics of EC Comics. Even the title Shook, is a remix of Shock suspense stories, actually. So from EC Comics.
Do I have that? No, I have two other collections over here. I'm looking to the left, but so all right. It sounds like we have somebody else joining us. Let me go ahead and move over there real quick. Is there somebody else joining us? Yeah, 1 second. I'll add them, and then we'll go and keep on going. So. All right, Bradley, welcome. We are right now doing a screen share of the Kickstarter itself, so that way we can talk to people about it.
All right. Hey, I'm gonna be going back and forth because I'm currently fixing dinner. So
okay, then if you want to just mute whenever you're not on whenever you're not talking, then that'll help, because we don't want to get jealous what you're cooking, and then we're all gonna get hungry, and then the interview's gonna go off the rails. So, but welcome, Bradley. All right, so Second Sight Publishing. That's Bradley and Marcus. Okay, who are right now the head of our Soltron. Conducting this anthology in association with John Jennings Studios. So let's start with the origin of how this book came together. Marcus or Bradley, which one of you wants to take that on?
Well, I'll start. It came about with John and I, us both being horror fans, us both being comic historians, so to say, John more so than I. And then our discussion just for the love of comics. And John said to me one day, I want to do an anthology. And I, knowing he's from the South, you know, he said, you know, I wanted to have that Southern flavor. I wanted to have that. And I was all in from that point. But then Bradley and I were discussing putting an anthology together. And I was like, okay, well, you know, John and I have been talking about this. And Bradley said, okay, and this is where we get the whole dream team from, because in our conversation, somehow the Olympics came up. And we were like, well, we could put together a dream team of comic book writers and creators. Who would it be? And as Bradley started listing off people, we started contacting these people. And they were saying yes, like without hesitation. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I want to be a part of it. Yeah, let's do it. And that's how we got to where we are now.
Okay, so and then so John, when the discussion kind of took another elevation, I've known you for a long time, one of your students and a friend and all that, but well, and horror is one of your things. Kirby horror, you know, it's one of your 4 cornerstones foundationally. So
Right.
So to know that this thing, what we're doing this thing, we're actually going to do it. What?
Yeah,
So what was that?
that's
feeling
kind of
like?
how it went down. I mean, this is the thing. So I had the title. I always want to do something called Shook. I thought it was a great title. And
Okay.
I thought it was a great title. And you know, I figured it could work for this. And the other thing too is, you know, all of y'all know me. I'm like really hyper busy. Like I'm always spinning a lot of plates. And honestly, I didn't know when I get a chance to do something like this. So I was like, you know what, let's go for it. Even though there's no way it fits into the schedule, but you know, if you love it, if you fit it, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how it jumped off. And so we just decided to go for it and to see how it would shake out. So here we are.
Yes.
So,
And who came up with the title?
like I said, it's a title. Yeah, it's a title. I came up with it. Yeah, it was
okay, all right.
Yeah,
so okay, and then and Bradley. So as Marcus did, Second Sight, you know, got the ball rolling along with John, and then from your perspective, like what was it like just seeing this come together? This question's for Bradley.
Hold on for a minute.
Okay. Okay, we'll come back to Bradley. Okay.
To put this together, one thing that we at Second Sight were doing, and we're still in the process of doing, is we started transitioning to publishing more horror. We had already made our reputation in publishing not just horror comics, but specifically horror anthologies. Our horror anthologies, Mississippi Zombie, all 3 volumes have been in the top 100 graphic novels. The other 2 anthologies, Harvest of Horror, volumes 1 and 2, they've been top 100 graphic novels. Harvest of Horror Mississippi Zombie volume 3 actually debuted at #1 on Amazon Prime Canada. It's number 17 in the top 100 and stayed at number 17 for a couple of weeks. So we do horror. That's one thing Bradley and I love is the horror. Knowing that John loves the horror as well, it's like, okay, you love horror, we love horror, let's do some horror.
Okay.
We met Alverne. As I said, I was already aware of Alverne, but we met Alverne. And Alverne was like, I like horror too. Like, okay, well, come on, man, let's do this thing. And it essentially went down like that. It's like the people that we knew liked horror. We just asked them if they wanted to be a part. And they were like, yeah, let's do this.
Okay. So let's go back to the Kickstarter. I'll go ahead and share the screen again, and we'll go ahead and go like, you know, story by story for the creatives that are here, you know, that can actually talk about their story and what they're bringing to Shook. Okay, there we go. So we've got a little bit of background information. Let's go ahead and move down past all the acclaims and awards that are listed right here. We've got John Jennings Studio, the amazing lineup, very amazing lineup. So it looks like So this first one right here this is Bradley, right? So Bradley, your do you want to talk about your story that's going to be in this?
Yeah,
The artwork
actually,
up.
that's one of two
One or
that I'm
two,
gonna
okay.
have in the book. It's called Itchy Tasty or Tasty Itchy. I can't remember which one. It's a
Tasty Itchy.
post-apocalyptic. Yeah, it's a post-apocalyptic tale based in Louisiana where it was this outbreak of radioactive cockroaches. So the government got the bright idea to bomb them, and they thought they got rid of all the flesh-eating cockroaches and whatnot. But in doing so, they just made things worse.
Mhm.
There's other monsters and ghouls that come out during the night. This particular story, we are in the midst of a scavenging hunt for medicine and food. Of course, the main person of this story is the black girl named Sanaa, my daughter.
Nice.
But yeah, they're trying to find food, medicine to take back to the rest of the survivors at the safe haven. That's one. My
Okay.
other one is called Evil Live. It's about this cult that worship this I don't want to get too much away.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. I'll say something
this
for the
this
book.
entity, and we have a nurse that's kind of questioning a serial killer on what happened, why he did what he did to little girls. And we have another group that's made up of women that kill men for this entity. And that's well, I'm gonna leave that right there.
All
But
right.
the title is called Evil Live.
Even live. Okay. So a little bit of Amazon type of stuff as well as the roaches will outlast, us, in nuclear
Pretty much.
fallout.
Yeah.
Okay. I recognize some of that. And then moving on, we have John Jennings. John, your story title is The Breaks Art with Charlie. Is it Gobiel or I'm probably butchering the name.
Go Bill.
but
Yeah, that's right.
Go
Go
Bill.
Bill.
So do you want to
Yeah.
give us a little bit info about it?
Definitely. So, so the story is called The Breaks, and this is actually I've always been interested in horror anthologies, and actually, this is the first script I ever wrote for someone else, right? And so this story is actually really old. It's like I think I wrote it in like early 2000s, and me and my friend Damian Duffy, we wanted to do this thing called Urban Creep back in the day,
Yeah.
and so we were like building out stories, and Charlie and I came with a story about a former B-girl, a breakdancer, which the known parlance, and about how really the story is about like how hip hop was affected by like gentrification and the crack trade and stuff like that. And so it's kind of it's more like a Twilight Zone episode. So it's more about her contemplating her life and where she is, and she's in hospice, and so there's this middle space where she's kind of transitioning, and the things that are happening to her while she's kind of transitioning to another, to the afterworld. So that's The Breaks, right? The second story I'm doing is actually was also really influenced by that, and I'm doing it with Jamal Williams, and it's called Lady of Rage, actually, and it's an anti domestic violence story. And so I just leave it there.
Okay.
But both of them are social justice oriented around
grounded horror.
Yeah, exactly. Or what Jordan Peele calls it social horror, that kind
social
of thing.
Horror. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's great that there's a little bit of there's variety happening here with this tome that it's not just body horror, it's not just like
cosmic horror.
It sounds like there's a well-rounded mixture of different horror coming from different angles. And next we have Marcus Roberts. Marcus, you have the story title. This particular one that we're looking at is Hell to Pay, art by Jamal Williams. Would you like to give us a little bit of background or whatever you want to share about it? You don't have to spoil anything.
Well, the story is about these two scientists who build a time machine in order to go back in time to right one of the most heinous crimes that occurred during the civil rights era.
Mhm.
And it's the price that they will pay in order to be successful. The title of it is Hell to Pay. And the story actually is based on a radio play that was written by Professor James Z. Tokley Sr., who is the poet laureate of Tampa Bay.
Okay.
And then I
Based in
have
Florida. Sorry.
I have a second story in it. The second story is called Sucker's Revenge. It's a short story about the president of a hedge fund who is trying to get away after getting caught for pilfering funds from his customers.
Okay, let me go ahead and add someone back to the stream real quick. Sorry about that. Welcome back, Evan. And
Hey,
so, okay, how's it going? So we're going through the stories here on the Kickstarter, and then we're going to see, we have Kevin Grevious, the Kevin Grevious. So like one of my favorite characters to the, I won't say cult horror flick because it's pretty much a franchise, Underworld. Not only did Kevin star in it, but Kevin also, I believe, wrote and produced, was part of the originators of that franchise, as well as voicing various animation. And my favorite werewolf, pretty much. So, yeah. Kevin's probably busy. I heard he was talking about getting back into shape. But that looks like Ezra the Hunter. I like that name. And so we can follow up with Kevin later in regards to the story, but the artwork is popping, as you can see, very nice. Also, the Blue Marvel creator, can't forget that. And let's move on to, we have Rodney Barnes as well, the Rodney Barnes. So the last March. Actually, we do have one of the creative team here. So, David, would you like to take point on this and give us a little bit of some background info regarding it, and we'll show your artwork as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the cover inks for that right there, and it kind of like, hopefully it's doing the thing that it's supposed to do. It's like sort of explaining the story. It's a tale of revenge, and I guess putting it, it's zombies versus the Klan. And that's all you need to. that's the tagline. I mean, that's all you need right there. It works out to be more of your so your OG zombies from like before like zombies were some kind of like like before they were faster or before. I mean, even before that, we're talking like before George Romero. We're talking like legit like hoodoo zombies. So this is
like Italian. Like zombie, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. These are the ex zombies. Zombie.
Gotcha.
This is
ex zombie.
This is Fella. This is Fella Kuti zombies.
Yes,
what I'm saying?
Italian stuff. Nice.
So yeah, it's it's a harkening back to that style of storytelling, and Rodney, like I've worked with a lot of really brilliant writers in my life, and I'm really happy to be a part of something he's done. And just like reading his script, and I was like super down for it. Like, but just like seriously reading through his script, I was like, it was like going to comics writing class,
nice.
And I've
like get into that.
Yeah, like I've created with like I've done a lot of stuff with John, and John's brilliant, and I've worked with other award-winning writers, not to like be modest about it, but like to read from what Rodney does and what he's able to do in like the 12 pages we had for this, like I was like, whoa, that's like, I mean, it's tight, it's like it's exciting, it's like it's both action packed, and it also provides some history and historical context for pain and trauma, and it's an amazing 12 pages, 12
all the beats,
12 pages of wild ride. What was that? I'm sorry.
I was saying hitting all the beats, basically.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
literally, this was like it was all the beats. I mean, it was if we could turn it into percussion, like I mean, this is a this is a dope breakbeat. You know, this is like we're talking like on a vibraphone. We're just like bop, 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 you know, like African. It's wonderful to read and
Preaching my
to work with.
sermon. You're preaching my sermon. That was my lesson plan last week before the break. So yeah. Because they kept playing music during my class. I was like, okay, well, let's take what you have and we'll use that then. So moving on, and this is perfect transition to Evan, because Evan, as someone else who's worked in theater and film and is worked in front as well as the transition, and as David and I were just talking about with the beats and not being afraid to have to cut stuff, like which is a common thing when you're dealing in film, having to cut things that and stick to what is essential. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, and then later on we'll get into just the different transitions between full script writing and in comics versus writing with a screenplay, or just the more I should say like beat written expertise of writing with like for movies and TV.
Okay.
Some kind of word salad like that. Okay.
So you
so the removers. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the movers basically it's elite unit of superhero hunters, and they're hunting this life form I'm creating called the Nephilims, right? The term comes out of like a biblical space, but I'm twisting it around to fit this world, so it ain't exactly outlined. It's not exactly the same, I guess, myth when it comes to the biblical space, but I like the name, and I like some of the images I've seen of what they look like, right? So it's called The Removers. It's centers around the main character, who's a young lady named Drew, and she's basically on her first assignment to assassinate or take out one of these powerful removers. The removers themselves, not removers, I'm sorry, Nephilim. The Nephilim themselves are able to basically transform, so without giving away too much of this very short story, this person is actually operating in plain sight as something else, but the removers come to basically flush her out of where she is. The story originally came from, it's funny, I had a friend of mine, actually an ex-girlfriend, who, when she was in college, her father, like her whole family was kind of in the funeral business. Her dad owned like 2 funeral homes. Her brother to this day owns a removal service, and has basically accounts in Virginia, Maryland, so on and so forth. But what removers do is when people die, those are people come get the people when they die, and they bring them either to the morgue or they bring them to the funeral home. So when she was 19, a 19-year-old sophomore, she would go by herself and get these bodies, right? And she's very unassuming, she's pretty, and she's not a big woman. And I asked her, I said, has there ever been a time where you've been freaked out by it? And she said, no. She said only of all the times she did it, there was like 2 times that she kind of freaked her out. And so I said, there was one particular one. I said, well, what would happen if I turned this? How could I take this particular story and turn it into something like a horror? And that's basically where it came from. So I took sort of that incident and I expanded on it a little bit to create this character and this world, which is the story is a shorter version of a feature I'm actually penning now.
Oh, nice.
That's going to be a larger graphic novel. And so I was working on it today, and it's fun and it's also painful to write a larger film. But I think I have something really cool, and I'm glad to be a part of this.
Yeah, the premise sounds exciting. It sounds interesting, and I can already see the imagery going before my eyes. So I believe we just had Kevin Grievous also join us. Welcome, Kevin. Hey, how's it going? So Kevin,
I'm kind of sick, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we were just scrolling by your contribution to the Chick Anthology. Given that you are not feeling too well, do you want to talk a little bit about it, or do you want us just to kind of move on to the rest of the Kickstarter?
Move on to the rest. I'll talk about it.
Okay.
Basically, my story is Ezra the Hunter, and it's about a 600-year-old monster hunter who was engineered or bred to actually fight monsters that harken back to after the flood, and like evidence with the Nephilim. And my monsters I show are the Rephaim, who are descendants from the Nephilim. And with the great biblical flood that happened years ago, millennia ago, they were able to survive by transforming themselves into water breathers, and then came up and differentiated into the various monsters we see before you, which is why in Egyptian mythology you have all of these quote-unquote gods of different animals, but they're actually were creatures, is what I say in my story.
Okay.
And it's actually an organization, an ancient Egyptian organization called the Scarab Order, that was tasked with protecting humanity and from these creatures. And so Ezra is basically the culmination of a lot of the ancient Egyptian medicines and sciences to breed the perfect monster hunter, and that's what he is. So he hasn't been around since ancient Egyptian times, but the organization has. And so he is just he's the best one they have to go after these monsters, and that's where I basically take my story from that mythology that I already have a screenplay for.
Nice.
And trying to build that into a franchise, much like I did with Underworld, I Frankenstein, Blade, things of that nature.
Exactly. Am I detecting some fan service here with the emerging of sorts of some fan favorites, iconic characters that you played as Rays and the Scarab? Is there anything, just a nod to the fans? Is that related in any way, or just happens to be a coincidence?
Oh well, I've always been into that genre.
Okay.
Ever since I was a kid. So, if you're talking about fan service, I mean, I was a fan before I was a professional.
That is true. You are a big fan.
And once I became a professional, I never stopped being a fan.
Yeah.
So it's just about how to operate within the spaces.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I love your debates on social media when it starts getting down to, because you can totally tell you're a fan, with Superman, Hulk, and all that. I love when you start stirring the pot. It's like, here we go. So strap in. So let's talk about the Kickstarter itself, everybody. Let's go and talk about the rewards, because that's what people want to really know about, right? Also, they want to know, okay, well, if I pledge this, what am I getting? Besides the fact that you can give $10, because today is Tuesday, it's Giving Tuesday. You can do that, $10, back it because you believe it, or you're like, yeah, I need a little bit more on that. So then there's also a $5 tier where you can just support because you want to support it. And then we get to the $15 digital tier. So backers will receive a digital copy of the Shook Anthology that you can play on your favorite device. In most cases, technology is finally caught up with our imaginations. And $35 is the print tier. So that is a print copy of Shook Anthology, a limited poster, a sketch card, stickers, bookmark, and buttons, all for $35. That's a heck of a package. That's a nice bundle there, and that's physical. So that's what you'll be getting if you pledge the $35 level. Moving on, at $50, you get the best of both worlds. You get print and digital tiers, and I believe is there a special bookmark? There is a special bookmark with this tier. And then moving on for $15 more, $65 is the blackout tier. Backers receive a variant blackout cover of Shook Anthology, limited poster, sketch card, bookmark, buttons, and stickers. So that way you can wear your favorite jean vest and wear the buttons and put the stickers on the refrigerator. Okay, moving on to the platinum tier. Platinum is $80. At $80, you're getting the platinum edition of Shook Anthology, limited poster, sketch card, stickers, special bookmark, and again, those buttons. All right. Let's move on to the gold tier. $100 or more, you're getting a gold edition of Shook Anthology, digital copy, limited poster, sketch card, stickers, and bookmark. So you have to borrow the buttons from the other guy. Okay, moving on to another $100 tier. Retailer tier. This is for you retailers that want to get Shook Anthology or into your shops. Pay attention, my friends. So Gib, if you're out there, pay attention, please. Retailers can order 5 copies of Shook, a black horror anthology, regular cover for a discounted price of $100. Okay, so $100. And remember, this is not your standard page count. This is an anthology, so this is going to be more robust. So that way you get your money's worth. At $150, we have the retailer tier number 2. It's foil. This is for those special collectors. Retailers can order 5 copies of Shook, a black horror anthology, foil cover for a discounted price of $150. So now we're going into the more metallic stages of things. And at $175, now we're getting into there's only 4 of these left. So 4 of these left, and that is $175 for the Dark Storm. I don't know how to say that word. Signet ring tier. Okay, I need to go back to school. Signet, thank you. Apologies. I have degrees. They're working. Okay. So backers receive the emblem etched Darkstorm Signet ring, signed copy from Kevin Grievous, who you just heard from, regular cover Shook at Black Horror Anthology, limited edition posters, stickers, bookmark, those buttons again, I Frankenstein comics signed by Kevin Grievous, Underworld comics signed by Kevin Grievous, and autographed pictures. So if you're a fan of Kevin Grievous, this is the tier for you. And that's quite the bundle, and it's like the greatest hits of Kevin Grievous. Not counting Blue Marvel, So, okay, moving on. Okay, we got a Candyman print tier, everybody. $200. Backers received an original print art from the recently released Candyman movie, illustrated by our very own John Jennings. Foil cover of Shook Anthology. Just look at that foil cover. Buttons, stickers, and limited posters. Okay, and that is limited to only 19 left. 19 left of that one. And then moving on. Oh, I spoke too soon. What is this? Blue Marvel. Okay. All right. So at the $225 tier, you're getting Blue Marvel. New word I just learned, Signet ring tier. Okay. You get the emblem etched Blue Marvel Signet ring, signed copy from Kevin Grievous, standard cover Shook Black Horror Anthology, limited edition posters, stickers, bookmark buttons, I Frankenstein comics signed by Kevin Grievous, Underworld comics signed by Kevin Grievous, autographed pictures. So if you were wondering where that Blue Marvel was, it's right here. It's $225, and there's only 4 left of that. So people are already starting to. There were 5. So moving on, we have the $275 tier, Candyman original poster tier. So that's backers are receiving the anthology, the Shook Anthology, which is a foil edition, your buttons, your stickers, the limited poster, an original poster, again released. Candyman movie illustrated by John Jennings. And let's see, this the rewards keep happening. This is really, really robust. So, okay, we've got a couple more, and then we'll go ahead. We're getting into the hardcover. For all the hardcover fans that like to have the stuff standing nice on your bookshelf, this is a hardcover edition of Shook Anthology, signed by the creators. And it is a gold edition. This is $300 tier. All right, you're getting the blackout cover edition as well, a limited edition poster, sketch cards, stickers, bookmarks, button. Okay. Moving on, we have the David Walker. I can tell David Walker tier is here. This is the $1,000 or more. You get the rare bitter root collector tier. This is the gold edition of Shook Anthology, the hardcover edition, the ultra rare variant of bitter root number 1, signed by John Jennings. Original artwork from one of the stories in the book. That's original artwork. Okay. The limited poster, sketch cards, stickers, bookmark, and buttons. There's only 4 left of those. Okay, so they're very limited. And then we have the VIP tier. The last tier of this campaign is $2,000 or more. It is the Shook VIP tier. Backers receive every reward from every tier, plus original signed artwork from John Jennings. There's only 2 left. This started at 10. There's only 2 left. So you need to act now if you want to get one of these for the VIP tier. So with that being said, let's bring it back to our panel. Thank you for hanging with us in regards to the screen sharing and my scrolling and my bad grammar. Let's move on to questions. So do you have any questions from anyone in the comment section? No, we just got people that are watching. I think they're oh wait, we got somebody in the questions. Okay, so we got people that are championing everyone's efforts here. So LFG boys, so that's pretty much, let's far from Newton go, boys. Okay. Colby. So I wanted hone in on some questions about process and just the creative process. Let's start with maybe talking in regards to those of you that came from film, and we touched a little bit on this. And David actually was the one that touched on it. So for those of you who worked with film, whether it be in front of the camera or behind the camera, writing and producing, what for those that don't know, what is it like scripting for film or TV versus like a screenplay versus comics? I've always found that the screenplays were leaner and meaner, but your mileage may vary. Let's start with I think originally I was going to start with Evan, and I know Kevin as well as others can weigh in on this. So Evan, did you want to start us off on this?
The question was, what's the difference between screenwriting and
scripting
comic
comics
book?
from your experience? Yeah, from your experience.
Well,
your
my
point of view.
experience is probably the most. I'm the newbie, so
Yes.
I'm learning. Even when I specifically wrote the story, and I had to get basically some assistance in understanding how to really sort of position the story in a way that can help the artist. And to some degree, that, for me at least, that changed the original script, so I can sort of present more action, so it could be easier for the artist to tell the story in a graphic novel form. So when you deal with, at least, and probably I think Kevin probably speaks the best to this, because he's, I don't know who else here off the top of my head, but I know Kevin for sure is a movie producer. So that's why the newest thing for me, and understanding that is a new learning curve for me, but it's definitely different because you're dealing with an artist and you have to help them sort of convey the essence of what your story is that you've written out maybe in screenplay form originally.
So was it more of a show don't tell experience that you found?
Yeah, it definitely showed I tell. Even in feature filmmaking, it should be the best films are show more than tell.
Yeah.
But it's even more of a show not tell when you're dealing with, I think, comic books. And Kevin, maybe you can.
We're going to go to Kevin next. So I was doing the alpha, like the Omega and Alpha backwards.
Oh, I got you.
Kevin.
There are a myriad of differences and similarities. With comics, I actually use a screenplay format to write my scripts. The difference is with the comic books, you're giving more direction than you do as a screenplay. The screenplay is more or less a guide for a prospective director, and you can suggest whatever. That doesn't mean he's going to do it. But you're the one who sets the mood of the pace. Whereas with the comic book script, you're actually directing the action inside the panel. And that's the major difference from a technical standpoint. Of course, both wind up being extremely visual. The comic book script is more didactic. You get into more nitty gritty, whereas the prose of a screenplay are meant to draw the reader in and give a real guide for the director and the producers of where they want to take it, and also the actors as well. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's the differences that I've seen.
Yeah, it shed some light, definitely. So with your experience, you've been for a while now, experienced in both realms. Do you have a favorite one, or is it just depends on the project?
But to tell you the truth, I actually like comic books more than the movie industry.
Okay.
But the comic book industry itself is a mess.
Yeah.
But still as a medium, I think it is just phenomenal. It's one of the best ways to me tell stories. Even as learning tools. I don't know if I should bring this up, but there is a book called Economics, and it's spelled with an X at the end, and it actually teaches economics by using comic book pages.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
the whole thing is a comic book, and it is phenomenal, you know. And if they could have textbooks like that for different subjects, school would be a different place. You know what I'm
We're
saying?
trying. We are trying. We are trying. John and I both are academics, and and my wife is a doctorate in education, and we raise crowdfunding fundraisers to get graphic novels as supplemental materials and curriculum in schools, and that's been a long effort. It's happening though. You're spot on. Yeah, more engagement. Kids would pay more attention. You know, everyone's first, not everyone's, but a lot of people's first time being literate was reading comics. You know, some people wouldn't even touch something to read unless they had a comic, and then that opened the door for them. So there's a lot of credence to what you're saying there, John. Since we're kind of talking about you know, full script and all that, but contemporaries of you all would be like Jordan Peele, you know, Misha Green and all that. But and John, you've been someone that's not only in the academic spectrum, but also as well as horror and film is really influenced you. So we don't have to stay on scripting. We could just talk about storytelling in general, because your imagery is very visceral in a good way. You know what I mean? In a good way. But you also love to dabble and mix in, you know, film and horror. You know, so can we just get a little bit of insight as far as you know, for those that may not be familiar with your work, and just how your process is?
How I think of it. So for me, like, you know, storytelling is a type of problem solving. You know, my background is in design, and design is always about, well, what's the problem? How do we fix it, kind of thing. And also design is also storytelling. You know, but you know, at the end of the day, the deliverable, whether it be like a logo or a T-shirt design, is an index for a story, right? And so you basically create something that connects to it. So whether it be a pair of Jordans or a billboard or whatever, you know, it's still storytelling, right? Because I believe that we're made out of stories. You know, the story is the first technology that we use to actually understand the world, right? Whether it's like a myth about why the sun rises or sets, right? Or where the stars come from. You know, these are all like storytelling mechanisms. So we make sense of the world through how we access stories. And, you know, what I like about something like Shook is that when you control your own stories, then you control the world around you, right? And as far as like horror, you know, I think horror, first of all, you have to understand it's an affect, it's an emotion, right? And I think people a lot of times conflate the idea of scary and horrific, right? Jump scares, like that's more of a physical reaction. Like, oh, I jumped.
Yeah.
Horror is the thing that's left with you after the end of the story. But when the credits are rolling and that deep thing in the pit of your stomach that you can't get rid of, that's horror. You know, so when you think about the actual effects of what you just saw, right? And I think that people these days have kind of mixed that up. Now, what I will say about this is, like, it's hard to scare people with comics. It is hard because, you know, with a film, you actually be more immersive. You have like the sound, you got the editing, you know, you have all these different aspects. So to me, it's a bigger challenge to actually really, really create something that's upsetting and off-putting as a comic book. And so a lot of times you have to rely on like style, or you have to think about like weird juxtapositions of panels, you know, and also too, like just again, the gotcha endings and stuff like that. One of the things I used to love about EC Comics and Warren is they're all morality tales. They're trying to tell you something about humanity, you know. And a lot of that comes from like these stories, like, you know, in the Twilight Zone or like the Outer Limits, where we're talking about bigger societal issues. Like most of the times, like if you look at like EC Comics, it's something really bad happened to a bad person, right? Someone does something bad and they get punished for it because of whatever supernatural force, you know. So they're morality tales, right? And also it's about like just human nature, about the darkness inside of people, you know. So, you know, so what I'm thinking about when I create a story is like, okay, well, what is the kernel of the idea that I want to actually unpack, and then how does it relate to everyone? Because, you know, depending upon where you're coming from, like, you know, whatever political values that you might have, religion, race, gender, whatever, there's a primal connection that actually makes us, you know, relate to a story, you know. And I think that is actually what I'm trying to get at. So what is that primal thing that makes you connected, and there's a reason why there's particular stories and imagery that freak people out. So
Yeah.
when I'm creating an image, I'm trying to create something that is instant, that's designed to actually solve that problem, but also touch you in a visceral level, So yeah, I like to make scary things because to me, they get at the kernel of like who we are as a people, things we're afraid of.
I mean, horror is reflective of the experience. It's like a mirror. It's reflective of the person casting that reflection.
Exactly.
And it's a great thing about the medium, is and comics is a beautiful alchemy of what happens between the panels and the gutters, or doesn't happen, and people don't realize that we're basically wizards, casting spells on them, and they don't realize how we're,
images,
While we don't have the scare, when we don't have the jump scare, we have a lot of other tricks.
That's right.
Well, awesome. In regards to script, did you have more? I'm sorry, John.
No. I'm just excited.
Oh, okay. So let's move to Al, because Al mentioned horror. I like horror, as Marcus was saying. So Al, from a writer's point of view, what was it like? What was it like jumping into scripting this this thing, and what's the experience like seeing the art when the pages come back? For those that may not know.
For me, I'm on the fringe, I guess, or at the end of horror, because I write thriller novels and crime novels. So it kind of the thriller side of that horror comes into play. And for me, one of my favorite writers, and I think in some ways she's Southern horror, but they don't cast her as that, is Flannery O'Connor. And for me, that whole Southern Gothic thing, I love that Cormac McCarthy type of thing. But again, I come from it from a thriller side point. And so for me, it's all about, like John says, how do you get people scared or excited about, something that's 2D and that's on a page? And I've only seen it, I think, once or twice when I've read a comic where I've been like, oh my God, this is kind of actually scary. And I think one of those I always remember is, and it's really a panel. It's from 30 Days a Night when they showed a little vampire girl. Something about that little girl, she's like freaks me out. It's scared. But, speaking about like you see the art, it's just I think for every writer, if you're not an artist, when you see the writing, then it's like, oh, this is real. It's like it's coming to life in a way that's like, especially if an artist can capture your words or your panels exactly how you laid it out or how you envisioned it. You get that page back, you're like, oh my God, we are in sync. We are a couple. We're a power couple.
I know that. Anyway.
Has it ever been an experience where you weren't in sync, but what you got back was better than expected, or they took it a different way?
Yeah, there's been a lot of
that's
times
always a fun thing, right?
Yeah, I mean to cut you off. Yeah, I always tell artists when I work with them that my script is the blueprint, and at the end of the day, they are they're the contractors. They have to build the thing. So there's a lot of times I'll write something, I'll get something back where an artist has changed, point of view or an angle or something, and I'm like, oh, that just made the story even better. Did not see it that way. So I'm always open to artists definitely changing things in my scripts.
Okay. Well, given that we're talking about artists and what they can do with your scripts, we're going to move on naturally to David. So David, from an artist point of view, you mentioned it already working from a screenplay versus a full script. And we talked about the beats and the rhythm and all that. But what I guess the question is on what's it like when you break down a script, when you initially get a script, and then like, are you start visualizing automatically? Do you go through a few passes? Like, we're getting more into the technical weeds of things, but I mean, I guess what I'm asking is there a balance in between the technical weeds of things, trying to know that, oh man, I got to draw this, versus like just feeling like a raw emotion or experience of reading the script and experience it as the user would, maybe like a story, like just a story in its raw form?
Yeah, that's a dope question. I mean, like I'm good at my job, so like it usually I don't even need a second pass usually. Like I don't need a first pass. I usually kind of go page by page to try to build the tension as a person would read a book, so that's kind of what I'm trying to create. Sometimes there's a necessary, you got to read like 10 pages at a time because you are telling perhaps a particular type of action and you want to make sure that it's like consistent. But I I build my stories in chunks, I guess, in a way. I mean, yeah, because like when you're an artist, especially if you've done like John has done, you know, where you have a variety of skills, you know, to work from, where you've been a writer yourself, when you've been a colorist, if you've done lettering, if you've done all the other sort of like aspects of creating comics, then you have a general idea of like how you want to build that story and what kind of knowledge you can pull from. You know, I mean, you're like in a way you're the director of photography, you're the actors, you're the props, you're your craft services. You know, you're all aspects of building that you know, that visual language. And so, you know, like I just think it's for like from the side of being mostly doing art, you know, like the goal is to like whether it is horrific, whether it's slice of life, whether it's like, you know, despair, depression, whether it's like funny or comedic, you're trying to sort of imbue that that feeling of both timelessness and timeliness in your work. You know, like in the sense that, you know, it's a static image, but you have to make people feel that it's moving, that it has life, that it has energy, that it has like, you know, emotions, and that it is emotive. You know, that's what our job is as visual creators when we're creating. So, you know, that's mostly what I've always like aimed for. You know, and yeah, I guess like it honestly doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the genre in a way. Like you can come from. I mean, I think as a writer, maybe you have particular things you're trying to aim for. But for me, drawing sci-fi and drawing like, especially if you're doing like genre stuff, you know, like sci-fi, fantasy, horror, you know, all that kind of stuff to me is the same. It's literally the same with like, you know, different clothes, you know, like that's about the difference between them, you know. So like
they all gotta walk.
That's always what I'm trying to work for.
Yeah. All right. And speaking of multiple sets of skills, Marcus, so you and Bradley, as not only the publishers and editors, but also as creators within Shook, what's the experience like having to weigh and spin all those plates at the same time? And if you want to weigh in on your creative process as well, please do.
Well, definitely wearing a lot of hats is something you don't want to say you're forced to do, but if you want to be successful and you don't have a team of people around you, you have to do. And the thing with Bradley and I is we've got to a point where we are symbiotic in what we do. So we work well off of each other. We have a excellent personal relationship as well as an excellent work relationship. But I think more importantly than all that other business stuff, we work well together as creators. Like our ideas flow. I have that same type of relationship actually with John, but our ideas flow when we talk. And we talk about just different stories, different things, and being able to play off of each other, having that friendly competition is one thing one thing that's beneficial is there's a generational gap there. I'm old enough to be Bradley's father. So, like the
hey, you ain't that old now. I'm 41. You 53. You 15 years older than me. You more like a big brother. Come on. All right now.
The type of horror, the EC comics, the creepy, the eerie, I was a big fan of like Cryptic Shadows, of Alter Evil, supernatural thrillers. But in Bradley's generation, that boo jump out scare you type of thing, that was passe. Now it's more slasher. You got to see some blood. You got to see some body parts. Like if at least 5 people didn't get killed or stabbed, then you got to go back to the drawing board. So making those kind of adaptations for my own personal style. But to me, it's all fun because it's all horror. Because I like scaring people. I mean, I like scaring people. So if I can scare by just telling a nice, soft-spoken story that raises the hair on the back of your neck, then or if I have to bring out Billy Bob and his axe and he's chasing around the room, then we can do that too.
Nice.
But
so you like that slow burn, huh?
Yeah,
I like the
slow burn. So
yeah.
I like that blood and gore and guts in your face. Grit.
So Bradley, what was it like for you to have to spin multiple plates, creator as well as publisher, editor, and working with this group of like bangers, heavy hitters? So.
Man, well, that's a 3-part question. I'm answering the first one straight up. Straight up.
We gotta catch you up.
Putting on a lot of hats is very tiring.
Yes, it is.
Very tiring. It's a lot of work, but like what Brother Mark said, it comes with territory. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be successful, that's something you have to do.
Yeah.
And working with these legends in the industry, Alverne Ball, Mr. Marvel himself, John Jennings, and we got Rodney Bond. Man, it's a dream come true to me. I'll be honest with you. I'm like, wow. Me and Marcus were talking about the other day. I'm like, Mark, have you ever thought about in your wildest dreams we'd be working with these big names on one project? It blows my mind. He's like, man, I know, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. his deep voice is crazy, man. And then Mr. Kevin Grievo, Grievous. I'm sorry, Kevin. It's Kevin Grievous. I'm sorry. It's not Grievo.
No.
Mr. Deep Voice himself. Come on now.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I experienced that deep voice for the first time at San Diego Comic-Con when Kevin was on a panel with the First Underworld. So and then everyone was just kind of blown away in the audience. We're like, whoa. So,
yeah, you definitely know he's talking.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, but yeah. But again, my favorite werewolf, Kevin. My favorite werewolf. So,
but yeah, man. I mean, it's a dream, man. I can't express how proud I am of all these guys deciding to do this with us. When me and Marcus and John set out to do this, it took Marcus to kind of plaster in my head how big this really was.
Yes.
Something like this have not been done. And I mean, with all the type of talent that's attached to it, it has not been done. And, I'm happy. I'm thankful for the guys to come in, provide stories for us and everything, my hats off to them.
Yeah. This is our generation's all Negro.
Yeah. Oddly enough, when I was on the Kickstarter page, below your Kickstarter was All Negro Comics, the collection.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I pledged that Kickstarter as well. If I can say that. But this is our generation's All Negro Comics. I mean, this is something that not just the people involved here, but even the people involved in their own private conversations. They project a book that is representative of the culture in such a way that it speaks excellence from cover to cover. And in order to achieve something that dynamic, it's like you have to choose the right group of people. Mm-hmm. And when you look, I might as well say who's hot right now in horror. When you say who's hot in horror, then It's certain names that pop up.
Yes.
When you talk about the subgenres within horror, and you look at the people who what they've achieved even in those subgenres, and it's certain names that come up. So it's like, look, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it big.
Yeah.
It ain't no half stepping. It's not going to be no, okay, we want to get 1 or 2 quality stories and the rest is garbage. We don't operate like that.
No.
If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right.
Yeah.
We're going to provide people with absolute best product that they will invest their money in, because this is not a book. This is a historic project that's taken almost 70 years to come into fruition.
Mm-hmm. So it's an experience, and a generational experience, and right now some of your those comparatives, those people that are currently highlighted in the horror industry and just amongst regular TV viewers and whatnot. From my point of view, it's not a matter of like there's no tears. I look at this book, this effort, this panel before me as standing alongside those other peers, so to speak, and everything like that. So it's nice to have this volume in motion, and you all have plans should this go forward the way you want it to. There's more to come, right?
Yeah. Now we want the Kickstarter to fund, period.
Yeah.
Whether the Kickstarter funds or not, we have started something here.
Okay.
We have established something here, and we aren't going to be deterred, turned around. We won't break into depression or despair if we don't reach that goal, even though I know we're going to reach that goal.
Yeah.
But we have started something here, and this thing that we've started will become representative of a standard of excellence.
All right.
This is our feelings. This is how strong we feel. This is what we see. Potential. The thing about potential is having potential is like having paper and ink. Paper and ink make money, but it's still just paper and ink until you put it together.
Yeah.
Well, we have done more than just got potential. We have put the paper and ink together. We've put the talent together to make figurative money.
Again, it's an experience. I feel like you're giving everyone a true experience. John, where do you see this? Where do you see? Obviously, this has legs. So where do you see this walk into? If you could predict the future, or just where do you want it to see it go? Like what areas and avenues are you looking forward to expanding out after this volume hits?
Well, definitely. I mean, one of the things that we recognize too is there are a lot of amazingly talented Black women working in horror, right? So
yes,
we want to do a follow-up volume that focuses on the extremely talented women creators. That would be amazing to do. Other thing that we kind of talked about too is that I've always wanted to, because I don't have enough things to do, is to put together I want to do a Shook Con, like a Shook event that actually is centered around Afrocentric horror, from various standpoints. So that would include like vending and panels and art shows and stuff like that, and maybe even doing like a Shook like prose collection eventually, stuff like that. So I think that there's a lot of people of the African diaspora that are very interested in horror, and because it's not only because it's a fun genre to work in, but because it's so useful to talk about particular issues that bother us on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I mean, I think the sky's the limit personally. I think that as a brand and as a space, that it would, if we can keep moving forward, I think it could be a lot of things that we could do under that banner. So.
Oh, please document it. I want to see a documentary. Like if you get to this physical space as well, let's get that. Let's see. We gotta get Bradley back in here, but let's see that on camera as well, because that's something that I think needs to be put down for the history and the culture. So Kevin, I know you're not feeling well, so I don't want to have you talking too much if you're not feeling up to it. But as a writer and as for comics as well as film, and someone that's also has created art in front of the camera, when you get the pages back from your artists when it comes to comics, is there any I guess I'm asking about your experience. What's that like, being on both sides of the camera and really three-dimensional, fully realized as a performer and a producer and a creator? I think there's a question in there. Oh, he's on mute, by the way. So me. Okay, Kevin, if you are answering, you're on mute. Oh, you might be away from the audio, the stream right now. So okay, we'll move on. So yeah, big plans. It sounds like this has got a lot of legs. Shook. Sorry, I heard someone coming back. Let's check it to Kickstarter real quick.
Here it is.
Oh, okay.
Hey, yeah, I don't know how we got muted. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a lot to unpack there, actually. So, with regard to the art, I always found it fascinating when it comes in, because you're looking at your words come to life on comic book pages. And, there's now the real difference is between independent work and then working for, like, let's say Marvel or DC, because I get to speak more with the artist doing independent books than the artist with DC. A lot of times, like, I remember this one incident with Axel Alonso. The art came back from New Warriors, and I had a lot of notes. And Axel wrote me privately. He says, "Kevin, we don't have time to do all of that." He says the way it works is that if it's really pressing, you let me know, and then I'll tell the artist. And I said, okay. And then, so that happened. And, and then something happened with another buddy of mine, Ken Lashley. We were doing this project together. And the art came back, and of course it looked good, but I had some notes. And then he wrote me back, "Just let me do my thing, baby." You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, okay. You know what? I think I got the point that you let the artist be the artist. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
He doesn't stick his fingers on my keyboard. I don't touch his pencil. Unless it's really pressing and affects the story. Okay. So I've learned to live with what I get, unless there's something pressing. And I'm just like, great, tells a story. Let's go to the next one. Now, you mentioned juxtaposing that with film, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what was the question as it pertains to film?
Well, it was just based off your experience in film, being in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, and you've already answered it honestly with the writing when the art comes back. So just based off your experience in the other industry, what was it like getting the art back? Because you would have notes and you pretty much nailed it right there. So you did answer the question. So okay. As far as the genre goes of black horror and horror in general, where would you like to see it go? Moving forward.
Well, you know what? I don't know if I really like the term black horror. It's just horror. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just happening. It's just that we might focus on aspects of our culture. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so I think that's where that conversation should begin or end. Now, having said that, I think that for too long, our people have stayed away from genre to our detriment. We should have been in it from the beginning and shouldn't look at it as so esoteric that it's, oh, that's white. It's not like that at all. If you look at You know, and the same thing with science fiction. If you look at Octavia Butler or Samuel R. Delaney, you know, these people are giants in the industry, but most Black folks don't even know that they exist.
Yes.
You know, and that's because of our own myopia. So I think what needs to happen is through books like this, we get out there. You know, there is nothing wrong with having things that are culturally I don't want to say significant, but culturally out there, culturally created.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to have to find a way to be seen without having to rely on that. Let the work speak for itself. You see what I'm saying? Both as individuals and as a collective. And, you know, and part of it, you know, I don't know if we want to get into this, but part of it is the marketing too. How do we make sure our people know it exists? And, you know, one way I see are the HBCUs, you know, in HBCU bookstores. Now, there's not enough room for all Black product, but there has to be a way to reach our people or have a hub that we can go to that's like, okay, this is where our product is. This is where you can see our stuff and what we're doing in it. And I think that would help us all tremendously, you know.
Yeah.
But story for another day.
Well, you know, to add to that, I feel like the entrepreneur spirit of our people is well known. In fact, it's oftentimes emulated by big business and whatnot and corporations. When they see us, innovating, it's not soon thereafter that they're taking that and utilizing it because they see it's being effective. It's effective. So as far as innovators and I think that's something that hip hop came from too. The origins of hip hop is innovation as well as getting into spaces that maybe we weren't originally allowed to be in or just weren't thought of to be in there. I think where there's a will, there's a way, and I feel like we have a lot of will, and I think the HBCU would be great. Academia, as John could attest, is way more accepting of comics and sequential art now. In fact, It's becoming a tool in academia as a way of comparative studies as well as humanities, as a way of getting more people into the classroom. I definitely agree that we're still scratching the surface. We have a long way to go in regards to boosting that signal and getting it out there past into the mainstream, I guess you could say, for other people that are like, hey, comics are only this or horror is only this. Like, nope, it's a little bit more wider than that. But I'm gonna get off my soapbox because this is really all about you all right now. So basically, so from here on out, we've been talking for a while now. As far as the Shook anthology goes, I do see a lot of different angles. There's already 2 stories in there that mention the Nephilim, but I'm pretty certain from the looks of the pages that they're going to come at it from 2 POVs. It's not going to be like rinse and repeat. And I think that it's awesome to have same themes at a glance, and then it actually go one way and the other stories go another way, because these subject matters are so broad and they could be told from different voices. So David, just while you're sketching, what's a genre that you feel, just building off of what Kevin was talking about, what's a genre that you feel like, hey, you know what, we definitely can have a voice in that. We want some of that, or we can take this ball and run with it. Is there a genre that comes to mind? This is a question for anybody, by the way. Is there a genre you're like, you know what, untapped potential, let's get it?
You mean within comics, like
creating sequential art and genre in general? The comics will come.
I mean,
one way or another.
Champion surrealism is like as something Black people need and want and should have as a part of their media literacy. Like I think it's something that we already fucks with. You know, like you ever listen to MF Doom? You ever listen to Ninth Wonder? You ever listen to Sun Ra? You know, like these things are already a part of the Black lexicon, and it just takes literacy about what is already a part of what people are creating. You know, to understand that that's what they're doing and they're contributing to and they're being a part of. So, in terms of storytelling, you know, I think it's something that needs to be, championed, you know, and needs to be, people need to write for it and people need to create for it, you know, and you know, I'm already doing that, and I hope that there's other people out there who are also willing to sort of take that that jump into something that doesn't fit into what Black people are supposed to know and create and understand and be a part of, you know. And I think because, like I said, I think we're already doing it, and you just have to understand that this is the thing that you're doing, and so yeah, that's what I'd pinpoint.
Oh, you said my genre, surrealism and memoir, you know, and poetry, like visual poetry, things of that nature. The things that some unfortunately some young people may not realize that this is us. We were Harlem Renaissance. We were the writers as well, you know, and the poets and all that. Like, don't shy away from it. Lean into it. You know, this is yours too. As opposed to saying no, it has to only be superheroes or it has to only be like hood noir or something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be. Like, every genre, we're humans. And the human existence, the human experience is you know, like everything basically. Any other genres, gentlemen, that you would like to see? Let's open up that book of that can of worms and raise some hell.
I think a lot about this. I think a lot about it.
Would you like
you know, it's funny because I'm with Kevin about like the idea of normalizing horror. You know, normalizing these experiences, right? To eschew the constrictions of race, so to speak, right? I mean, and if you think about it, like it has been like always our path to kind of like create our own space first, you know, before it becomes mainstream or fuse into the mainstream. I mean, they call rock and roll and the blues like race music to start with, right? Because Black people were creating it, you know, and then of course later on it becomes these other things. So I think as a similar space, you know, like, well, first we deal with the fact that we have the diaspora and they might actually categorize us that way. But really we're just making horror. Really we're just making literature, you know. And I think it's not an organic process. Unfortunately, we have to create our own spaces first before we get noticed, you know. And that has always been the case throughout history, you know. But for me, though, I'm really interested in folk horror. I'm really into folk spaces, you know. After watching this great documentary on Shudder about folk horror, you know, and actually have a section they talk about like, you know, essentially like Afrocentric folk horror, right? Stuff like Skeleton Key and things of that nature, where like hoodoo and like folk magic through African space is actually being utilized to have conversations like that. The other thing I'm really interested in is looking at like, you know, the history of weird fiction and surrealist fiction and stuff like that, and figuring out like who are the figures that we can actually build on. You know, for instance, like who is our H.P. Lovecraft? You know, who is our H.G. Wells? For me, it's probably Du Bois because of the fact that he created the megascope and things of that nature. You know, the more you look at like Black literature, the more you realize that so much of it is speculative. You know, and you only have to like push it in either direction. It can either be like really positive and like futuristic, or it can talk about like these more darker aspects, right? And so again, you know, horror is about affect. It's about like, well, where does the space that leaves you, you know? And so, you know, me and my friend David, we do a lot of experiments in that space. So, you know, and are still pushing in those spaces. So, you know, I think also I want to actually elevate, you know, continue to elevate, because it's already elevated, the medium of comics, you know. So I have like things like, well, you know, if there were like Black creators of comics during the Harlem Renaissance, what kind of comics would they have made? That kind of thing, you know.
Oh, I love that.
But
I love that.
Like Kevin said, like Kevin said, a lot of times we're like looking down our noses at genre and not really embracing that this is an art form as well, you know. So I want to do a project like that. Like, okay, if Du Bois was writing comic books, what would they look like? You know, if Hurston was writing a comic book, what would they look like? You know, that kind of thing. So I like creating like design fiction like that. You know, so I'm like, yeah. And the last thing I'm really interested in is creating like a Black speculative poetic, like an Afro poetic. Like what is the mythopoetic around Black speculative culture? You know, and I have like kind of a roadmap to a certain degree because I've been studying there's different aspects of it. But as you're saying, you know, Jam, we actually have like a rich history that we just need to delve into it and see the mystical aspects of it. You know, it's right there in front of us. You know, we just need to put it into the comics.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is there are not a lot of places that we can go to find out how broad our culture or our history actually is. Like, for instance, I don't remember the name of the TV show, but it was something about food, you know, and I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it said that okra, watermelon, gumbo, all came from Africa. I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they traced the history of it, how it came to be. And it's like, so how come I never knew that before? You know, other people did, or a certain select people did. But stuff like that has to be at our fingertips so that it's easily accessible to our children and even those adults who don't know, you know.
Yeah, that comes from a lack of education that was intentional, unfortunately. You know, our books weren't reflective of our experiences or even the real American experience. You know, speaking from my own experience from West Coast as well as an educator, and even now there's still a war on education, real education, in regards to people knowing where they came from. You know, especially if we're descended from colonization. I mean, that's a real thing. That's a real issue, and it doesn't have to be the boogeyman that people are making it to be. It's history. It's something that we should learn from and be able to talk about openly, so that way it doesn't happen again. As well as you know, I think more empathy would be extended if people were taught to embrace these things as opposed to run away from these things and act like they didn't happen. So Harlem Renaissance, I think, would be key as sequential art. I've drawn Harlem Renaissance figures and try to make it a theme, and unfortunately those planners have gotten lost. It's like the universe is against me when I try to do Harlem Renaissance, but I think we're gonna get there. John, you remember that Frederick Douglass Afrofuturist drawing I did back? Yeah. So yeah, I can't wait till we can tell those stories, and I know through you all that's gonna happen because I know how you all lean. I know what you all want, and I know that there's a lot of us out there that want to tell these stories. I've said it before, and I say it again. I feel like we are almost like if we're not there, we're right there at the new Renaissance, you know, that's happening, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, with the Renaissance, because like we're talking about different genres. For me, the genre would be what was referred to as sword and soul. I am heavily attracted into those Afrocentric fantasy type stories. I grew up reading Conan the Barbarian, and every now and then you get a cool black character in there, but it's like you have this whole made up world of fantasy that I would ask myself, what would the black person like in this space? How would a black story be that's not Eurocentric, but more Afrocentric in the same space? And I mean, it's guys, you're seeing more and more guys that are telling these type tales that we normally may have associated with characters along the line of Conan or
Solomon Kane.
Or Hyperborean REH. Yeah.
You know, what I did with my character Uzon is I created a fantasy Africa that was just as rich as the fantasy Europe that they use. So instead of dragons, our creatures would be giant, you know, saber-toothed panthers where they ride, you know, jeweled rhinoceroses or, you know, giraffes or whatever. You know, so things like that. It's just a matter of having the wherewithal, the funds, and the distribution to get it done. Because we've all thought of stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And of course, like
I have my series, the Protector series. Just got volume 2 of the series out actually, but the whole thing about that is having a character with a rich history, a rich background that's based in Sword and Soul, and soul based in that. Then the first volume, there's mention of the attempted colonialization of the village he's from, but other than that, you don't find any mentions of Europeans because it's not a European story. And the volume 2, it's about Vikings in Africa, but it's a African story set in a Viking territory. These are Vikings that made their way to Africa, so it's still Afrocentric, and it's that type of thing, that type of fantasy that I'm most interested in. As I said, I grew up as a Conan the Barbarian fan, so I like that whole idea of that type of character. And I see this
generation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I see this type of character actually with a lot of legs to it, because the stories that you tell will actually change from person to person, experience, their knowledge, their research, but they all will be entertaining. Something like that, you throw predictability out of the window because of the type of story it is. Some stories are predictable and you don't want to read it because it's like it's not going to be different. But this is a type of story where it is good versus evil. And
you went muted a little bit there, Marcus. Okay, your audio's back. The audio went a little bit, but yeah. But Marcus, just to add to that, as far as the fantasy and the sword and sorcery, there's also, while we might play with other genres, there's also the fact that we do have an authenticity to draw from in regards to our own actual history. If we think about the math and geometry and things of that nature, like who are like some of the inventors, the people that created some of these things that are before Eurocentric caught up, or introduced it to Europeans, that exists still. And those are authenticities that we can actually draw upon and bring them into those other genres. But like you, I'm a Robert E. Howard fan. I was a second generation Conan fan, so I got all my novels still. I have all my paperbacks. Frazetta is bow down to So I mean, Elsbrag de Camp, Lynn. I'm there. I'm right there with you. So So I found to build upon this and to bring it back to the education that Kevin was talking about, and some of us have already mentioned, where my wife and I teach, the area we teach, and there's a lot of people that have immigrated from Africa, Somalia, and so it's so our neighborhoods are underserved, 99%, considered Title I areas. But these are first generation students, but they're second. Their parents are from outside the country, the U.S. So what's lacking in the school system is materials that can go on their bulletin board, that can go into that the kids can't see themselves in. So what I'm working on is studying East African and other type of regional areas to create materials that I can put into the classroom and have teachers be able to go ahead and print out and hang in their classrooms, or tell stories that have people or characters that look like them. And I think that's important, just to have representation, in all the genres. And that doesn't happen until we all start creating that and draw upon the things that we grew up liking and things that we've maybe just been exposed to that want to tell it through our lens, and I feel like a lot of you here are pioneers, in doing that. So I feel like the work is happening. It's just maybe not being recognized as fast as we would like, but me coming from zine culture and indies and minis, I'll put it in a foldable with a staple if I have to get it out there, or on the web free if I have to. I do like to get paid and pay my bills. I got kids. It's Christmas coming, but I mean, so I do what I have to do. So what do you think we need to do then? As far as like to make to norm this, I may have been asked this question again, but what is it that people aren't accepting, the mainstream, or the people that are in the way? Like, how do you convince them? We shouldn't have to convince them. We can make it, but when do they come to the table? When's their come to Jesus moment? Anyone can answer.
That's a good question. I definitely want to speak to the previous comment though. Like I want to point out that, like I said, I've been in the academy for over 20 years. I don't want to say about it's going on 25 years now, and have created programs, like the ethnocentric conventions I mentioned. I mean, pre-COVID, the Harlem Black Combo Festival brings in like 12,000 people a year. So it's like the largest of its time. So building spaces like that, I think, are very important. Trying to network them together as much as possible. One of the things I've been really focused on is trying to archive and connect all the different Black creators, like-minded or not, actually, just create directories around them. It also too linked me and my friend David Brain here, along with Dr. Michael Dando, shout out to Michael, created this thing called the Lion Man Project, where we took the character Lion Man from All Negro Comics and updated them and turned it into a project for social justice, literacy, history, historical literacy, in partnership with the United Way. And we just finished our second issue, which is a character that we created called the Mighty Struggle, which is a historically based Black character. We're getting ready to open it up a little bit too. So, we've been doing this for like now, David, what, a year or so, or 2 years now? I don't even remember. The first one came. I mean, the pandemic. We've done two books so far, But so those are things that we've done, independently. But I know that other people are doing a lot more. As far as like bringing people to the table, I mean, for me, Abrams has been a really great ally to put out these types of works. I mean, the only thing is that it's bottlenecks because there's such a need for these books. There's so many people out here with so many stories. We can only do so many books, a season, and there's limitations not only like financially, but also personnel. Everybody's overworked, and that's the limitations. I think that there are people who want to help out, but it's just like there are. First of all, the bottom line has to be there. Like, will these books sell? But also, the personnel aspect of it, because these larger trade press they're putting out so many books, and they overwork the hell out of all their editors. They're all like just exhausted. So those are the issues. Those are the issues right there. It's a personnel thing, it's a bottleneck thing, and then as Kevin said earlier, distribution, is an issue as well. Working with a trade press, I mean, right now we're backed up all the way to like 2026 right now. Because it takes so long to make a fully functioning graphic novel, but it's still also the best space to publish in, for like making money. Now, establishing intellectual property, doing floppies and doing like trade paperbacks and stuff is great too. But if you want to advance on a book or something like that, then you're gonna have to deal with traditional publishing. And so the other trade-off is a lot of times because they're so big, they don't have the wherewithal to actually sell a book properly. You can talk to Tim Fielder about that with his book, Infinitum, for instance. Yeah. So
right here.
There's a lot of different factors. It's not one particular answer to these issues, but they are myriad. And honestly, up until recently, the deck has been stacked against us getting our space. We're just now becoming gatekeepers. Like for instance, the brother that just got they created Tristan Strong just got a imprint over at Disney, for instance. That's a brand new thing. And but then you have people like Kwame Alexander who that deal over at Hannah Mifflin fell through, from what I understand. So it's like because they didn't have the financials together. So one step forward,
which is a shame because Kwame's a regular. We use Kwame's books as a regular aspect of our curriculum, and we're constantly fundraising for those books and put them in the classroom.
Dawood been killing it, right? I mean, my God, to be working with the great Dawood on your relay on those.
Oh yeah, exactly. Brother man.
I think
if I could push back a little bit, just a little bit. I know money talks, right? and the publishing industry right now is under fire with a lot of criticism. They have a spotlight on them with that lawsuit and all that. So it's kind of like cause ripple effects. But why are we not innovating or utilizing the web? Things are. I mean, the web's been here for a while now, and some things I know are exclusive. I get it, money talks. But for those of us who may not be locked up in a contract, or why aren't traditional publishers really utilizing the web and the platforms? The technology is getting better in regards to formatting stories and everything like that. You know, social media, even in some regards, is one frame at a time, which kind of, and then you have the beautiful spread afterwards. You know, I mean, I'm looking at the independent press and things of that nature now, how they kind of make, where there's a will, there's a way, you know. So I guess my question is what's the hold up in innovating in that direction? Because the material is already around. You have the material. You're backed up with good material.
I can't really answer it totally, but I have to say, like, some of it's nostalgia. Some of it's like, because of comics, I mean, people really like holding objects. That's the thing. It's like, so, you know, people collect books. People like to stack them up and to smell them and to touch them, that kind of stuff. That's an industry, right? People love that. Personally, I can't do that. My wife will murder me if I buy another book. So I actually have like thousands of books on my. I have no problem with reading a comic online. Right? The other thing is the bandwidth for like the huh?
I think a lot of it also is financial, because from a publisher point of view, thinking about the monetization of the digital platform and how much income it actually would bring you as a publisher versus how much you actually would be paying out for materials that you acquire to publish. You have to find a balance wherein the digital content that you're providing generates enough funds wherein it will be sustainable. That I know who do both. They use the print on demand format. The numbers are up and down on that. But the ones who are successful, particularly in the horror genre, we are a horror company now, so this is where we look. But in the horror genre, there are websites that are dedicated to first presenting their material digitally. And then they have people who actually purchase those comics because they viewed the digital content.
Right.
And they've been quite successful at that. One of the companies that come to mind is Bloody Disgusting. You can subscribe to read comic books on their website, and then you can purchase those books that you've subscribed to. So it's there in a certain form, but it because of just the whole money thing. I mean, we can't be naive. Money makes things go on, and oftentimes these companies, if they don't see where they can monetize, if they don't see where there's an increase in the bottom line, then they will continue to go with the nostalgia, as John brought up, because they know they're going to buy books. People are going to buy books no matter. Some of the numbers that really was astounding to me was during the pandemic, when the pandemic hit 2020, you would expect a decrease in the sales of comics, but there wasn't. There was an increase.
Nope. Yep.
Like, okay, I got to buy medicine, but I got to buy my Batman book too. So
it was content abound, like all around. It was content. People were wanting content because they're stuck inside. Streaming, influence coming from an influencer space as well, where I do a lot of stuff and look at a lot of numbers and strategies. The reason why I brought up and pushed back a little bit was just because I see what's innovating in that space as far as monetization, getting ad revenue and building off of that and keeping the algorithm happy and whatnot. And then you said it yourself, you're a horror publisher now. So you have like the gift of giving people an experience, not just in publishing form with the printed material, but because you're a horror publisher, you also have eventually motion comics, limited animation things, the audio. One thing that our people are really good at is telling stories. Like audio and oral traditions are ingrained in our DNA, and as John just recently experienced, attending a fellow peer, as far as listening to the audio, the radio play, like horror and building that suspense, that meter and everything, the rhythm, the beats that we're talking about, all those subjects we're talking about. Like one genre that would lend itself to that is the genre that you all are excelling in. So again, if I push back a little bit, it's just not pushing back as to be contrarian. It's pushing back is the fact of a user experience as someone that is a dreamer, and I would love to see you all excel and just grow in those spaces as well, because I just want you all to win, and I want to see that as an experience too. So
but I think you have to start looking at how the audience is going to view these. And I think one of the biggest impediments is the money, in terms of how much the digital content is going to be. Like, I think it's ridiculous that, Marvel and DC are selling their digital books for the same price as their floppy ones.
I think that's
I mean, look, I'm not saying don't make anything, but make them 99 cents. You know what I'm saying?
$2 even.
Yeah. But if you make them 99 cents, you'll get people. People might buy your whole library for that month. Plus 80 bucks, But no, they're trying to make all this money. But the impediment is the retailers. The retailers think that, well, if people buy them digitally, they're not going to buy them physically. And so they're holding the industry hostage, in a sense. The other part is, and maybe I'm wrong to say this, but I view my comics on either an iPad Pro 12.9 or that 14-inch Samsung, and they look beautiful. See, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to look at them. But there needs to be number one. But for the consumer, that's a big investment. You know what I'm saying? And then there needs to be a standardized form, so everyone has, so everyone can look at the comic books in the same format, and you have to decide what that's going to be. Now,
that's a good point.
Now, looking at that also, what is the technological the technological aspect of that going to be from the person who actually publishes, if they are an independent, because they don't have the money to format their book so it goes from this panel to that panel and blah, blah, blah. And then you can zoom. You might just have to take, the money just to put it up digitally, and you can zoom in, and that's it. So there has to be some kind of standardization.
I can weigh in on that.
Yes.
It exists, believe it or not. When you don't have much, you have to innovate, right? My students, they flock to the web Tapest and the web comics. They flock to those apps. And Walter Osterley, who, believe it or not, has the connection to David here as one of the artists, the original artists on Isnana, the Were Spider, has a whole series of YouTube lessons where he breaks it all down. And the technology is at a point now where you can innovate and do things that would have cost a lot of money and be an expense and be an extra labor. But it's actually like at a point now where it's a lot streamlined, and even like a $9.99 app like Procreate can now animate, can now do GIFs, and can now provide you with some of those things that used to be blocks, obstacles for us. The kids in the classroom, they as much as I hate to say it, they don't read the books as often as they'll read their phones, because I keep having to tell them to put their phones down. I still bring in printed materials because, like John, I'm a bookophile. You know what I mean? I get it.
To see the books.
But there's
primarily digital.
So. It's out there. It's out there. It's happening. It's just not happening, I guess, like in a mainstream lens. but it's happening. So
I would actually push back about that a little bit. I don't think it. I think actually. I mean, you're 100% right. In terms of where the digital space is moving. But I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I deal with this with my kids who are they're teenagers, but
yeah,
they love webtoon and they love a lot of the other like Korean websites that produce similar types of webtoon stuff, and they're willing to actually pay for the subscription model, or they'll do the sort of the pay to play. They'll like, oh, I'll wait till I have enough coins to where I can like read it now instead of reading it 2 weeks later. But they'll either wait or they'll spend the money so that they can engage in that digital space. But they're also buying the physical things. I think of like Lore Olympus, which is like New York Times bestselling and started as a free webtoon, and it's something that they're getting like, the type of views and reads that a mainstream, we're talking Marvel's, DC's or whatever, they're dwarfing the number of reads that come in terms of like a physical comic. But what's happening after that is that, the big ones are, once they're produced as a physical piece, once you already have like people who are connected to that, to the storytelling, they're willing to go and spend $20-$40 or whatever on a physical book. I mean, I think my daughter was talking about they're doing a Kickstarter for Lore Olympus, and she's just like, I don't know if I want to spend $80 on these books. And I'm like, well, how many pages are you getting? And she's like, oh, it's like 300 pages of content. And I was like, you're spending $80 on 300 pages of content? That it like fully colored, large format. I'm just like, that is the deal. Get that. Buy that right now, And I think that's what a lot of us want, Like, I think that's what. So maybe in a way, it's we have to just like see what the young people are doing in a way, because like a lot of us are graybeards right now, and let's let's see what the dark beards are doing, the people who can't grow a beard. How are they thinking about innovating this what we're creating and finding ways to keep them as part of the process that we're doing, because we're dealing with mortgages and college tuition, and they're dealing with, I just got to make this thing, that's all they're thinking about. It's like, how do I make this? I'll do it as cheap and as free as possible, and I'll make 1 million of them, and that's how I'm gonna like be connected to this. So how do we like bridge that gap between these different generations and what we're creating?
Gotcha. Well, let's put a pin in this. This is a great discussion. We kind of went off into a really, really, really juicy topic as far as I'm concerned, because it's important, futuristic. I would love to come back and do this topic specifically with you all again. But Marcus, you have the last word. Second Sight Publishing, we've got your website on there, but let's talk about the Kickstarter real quick. As we wrap, we're going to share everyone's social media. I want to thank you all for a great conversation, great anthology, Shook, the Black Horror Anthology or Horror Anthology. And we need to get that number moving, because this thing needs to get out there. It will get out there one way or another, but you only have 8 days to be a part of it, people. So jump, get in on it. Marcus, the floor is yours, and then we'll move on to everyone's social media and where they can find you all.
All right. Well, the last thing that I'd like to say about this historic project, and I will continue to refer to it as historic, is that the words that I get from everyone else is reminiscent of when I did my very first con. I had an older lady. She was 78 years old. She told me, she was originally from Detroit, and she came up to me and she said, in my lifetime, I've never seen Black comic book creators. And that struck a nerve with me, that we blacks have been present in comics since day one. The very first bound book included a black character. So having motivation like that, I'm motivated to put books out. I do agree with Kevin in the sense that we shouldn't have to label it a black book, but I do have a certain pride in saying that this is a black horror anthology because of what it represents, the dream team that I talked about. Right. So I really encourage people to get in on this project. Get in now, irrespective of what goes down. We want the Kickstarter to fund, but the book is one that needs to be published and will be.
Agreed. And you can find Marcus as well as Bradley at secondsightpublishing.com to check out what they're all about. Make sure to check out the Shook Black Horror Anthology on Kickstarter. The links are in there. We'll be sharing the replay of this video as well in case you missed this replay. A lot of good nuggets of conversation here, topics. I think this topic has legs. This whole conversation has legs. In many places, I expect to see panels later on as John creates 20 more shows for us all to attend and be exhibiting at. So thank you so much, Marcus, for bringing this dream team together and letting me be a part of the conversation and as far as showing what you all are doing. John, where can people find you? Thank you. JohnJenningsStudio.com.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, John Jennings Studio is where you can find me. Also, I've just joined the Hive, so I'm Megascope 1 there on the Hive social, and also John Jennings Art on Instagram.
Okay, and speaking of Megascope, Alverne had to dip out early, but here's Alverne's social media. Alverne is also the writer for Across the Tracks, which I believe is a Megascope book. Speaking of history and whatnot, one of John's passions, one of the things that John wants to do that I hope to be a part of one day, especially with the Harlem Renaissance. Yes, Alverne on Instagram, Alverne Ball on Instagram and Twitter at Alverne Ball, and on Facebook, Alverne Ball. Writer, noir, thriller, great writer, and a great dancer. Okay, moving on. Let's see who else do we have as far as social media goes. Some of you, I didn't get your links, but you can just tell people where to find you at. Let's go with David first.
I'm at Amazing David, at Amazing David Brame, or you can just Google the Amazing David Brame, BRAME, like frame, like picture frame. I'm easy to find. There's only one of me, and I'll be like your first choice. Don't pick
the art is fierce.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
but great, the Amazing David Brame. Just look it up, and that's me.
Yeah, other artists step aside for David because I was talking to Greg about a story I wanted to draw. He said, "Actually, I'm going to talk to David." I was, "Oh yeah, I get it. Okay, let me dip out." So, go with the first. Always surprised me. Damn. Okay. Oh, and the Kevin Grievous. Besides the movies, film, and an endless list of credits. Where could they find you right now? Where would you like them to go to check you out?
They can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Kevin Grievous on all of those.
Okay.
On my own personal website, which is darkstormcomics.com.
I remember when that first got started. I remember being at San Diego while you were talking to Charles. I think I was being a barnacle just listening to you guys talk shop back and forth. So yeah. I had hair back then, and I was 100 pounds less. But anyways, thank you so much, everybody. Great show. If you're listening, check out Shook Horror Anthology on Kickstarter right now. 8 days left to go. You got to get some. Go for it. Thank you. Peace.